Today I'm going to work on contouring this rough piece of Vistaite Jasper. This is one of the better pieces of this material I've had, I think. The shape makes it awkward for slabbing and cutting into smaller stones, but I think this scene right here is really going to pop when I shine it up. Contours are not really my forte. I don't do them a whole lot, so this is going to take a little patience, and I'm going to experiment with using an expanding drum and a series of silicon carbide belts. But I'm going to dive in here. There will be a few decisions to make, aesthetic choices as far as how I want the domed, polished surface to meet these edges, and depending on how this color changes when I grind in, I might contour all of this here, or I might just leave it like this and keep the natural surface here. I'm optimistic that these colors are really going to pop. When I grind through the crust, it looks to me like it's oxidized a little darker over time, so I think it should brighten up and be pretty vibrant. I think it's coming along pretty well. I'm almost done with my initial grinding before I move on to scratch removal with the belts. I'm optimistic that if I keep grinding here, more of this nice light blue will show up, and maybe also this pattern will connect, and I'll get more of a continuous landscape across the face. But love these details up in here. I mean, you'll see when this thing gets polished up, but there's just something about the texture of this stuff, and the blend of colors is just, it's magical. It glows like a watercolor painting. So yeah, a little hard to see exactly how this pattern is going to behave in 3 dimensions. Compared to other picture Jaspers, Vistaite tends to be a little more random, with multiple scenic patterns kind of overlapping from different directions. But so far, so good. I think we got a little more grinding, and we'll see what happens with the pattern. Okay, I think I got my grinding done. I don't see any low spots. Maybe right there, but I don't feel it. I think the color in the scene really popped out nice. Looks like pretty consistent and ready to move on to the next stage. Okay, I'm going to move on to my expanding drum now to get these scratches out from the hard diamond wheel. I'm gambling and hoping I can go directly to a fresh 320 here. This grinding wheel I was using was a sintered but worn 180. Quick word on expanding drums. What makes them cool is sandpaper's cheap. I can replace these belts for just a couple bucks, and they give me a 3-inch wide surface area. This is an 8-inch machine, but I haven't ponied up to get all 8-inch wheels yet. So I run my 8-inch sintered wheel over here on the far left, but then I've got all my smaller 6-inch cabbing wheels packed into the center here. So to take these scratches out, without this expanding drum, I'd be moving on to one of these smaller hard wheels, and it would be really challenging to not catch an edge. And I just don't have a lot of space to work. So this should be a lot faster, and I'm hoping if I go 320/600, then I should be good to go for Cerium. So I'm hoping I can do this in only 3 stages. All right, we're coming along. That's after a few minutes running on the 320 there. It's very obvious I've got some major scratches there. Just generally around the edges are not looking great, but this center looks nice, consistent. Obviously I got a bunch to work on all the way across this bottom edge and into this corner. This corner looks pretty good. A little bit around there, but oh man, this material really does it for me. How cool is that? For the most part, I'd say I'm pretty pleased. That blue came through nicely. I love the shading. The pattern's good. Keep working on the 320, move to the 600, and should be done sanding. Okay, we're getting really close here. I spent some time and just rolled the light around the piece to every little spot. trying to catch the glare. Nothing egregious, nothing that would really take away from the finished piece, but I want it to be as consistent and flawless as I can. This area right here is the only real bad spot. You can definitely see some deeper scratches. But, so I just went over it with a pencil just to give myself a little bit of a visual reference. Looks like maybe I missed a couple in there. But one more round on the 320, and then we're ready to move on. I am certainly not saying that I'm an expert on doing contours, but this is how I'm going to approach this next. I just put a 600 grit belt on there, but it is a brand new belt. I know from experience that I can go no problem from worn 600, silicon carbide specifically, to cerium oxide. So what I'm going to do is going to take just a random slab and break that belt in. I'm just going to run the slab across the face for a while, break that down. That way when I go to move on to this piece, I know that I can take this directly to polish. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it. I am not experienced doing contours. I am doing this in real time. I don't even know if this is going to work. Hopefully it does, but that's what I'm going to do next. Not quite right. It's not running straight. There we go. So you saw there my belt was not centered and my wheel was wobbling like crazy, so I had to shut it down and get that thing lined up straight so it would be more balanced. And the other thing you saw me do is what I call breaking the edges. I took that slab and I rolled around both sides, especially focusing on the corners of the belt. I do that so that when I move on to this piece I'm contouring, if I catch an edge, hopefully it won't dig nearly as aggressive as if it were fresh grit. Because if you've done a lot of grinding, polishing rocks, you know that usually the very edges of your wheels are the most aggressive and the center gets worn out first. So I try to, in this particular application, I try to break down those corners and like really focus on using an extreme angle to grind that abrasive off. I think it will work. I think it helps. Okay, I'm finished with 600. I'm going back through this as critically as I can. There are a couple tiny spots like where these sharp corners meet the edge. But to be honest, I don't worry about that as much because I don't think it takes away from the piece as much as a big gouge through the center of the polished face. But I might touch it up one more time with the 600 if I find any other minor spots. But I think this is ready for cerium. It'll take a little elbow grease to dig these scratches out, but I think we can do it. It kind of looks like a horror movie in here, but got this thing done on the cerium lap, and now I just got to blast that cerium out of here. I don't know 100% if I aced it until I go home and dry it off and look at it under my big bright light, but feeling pretty good about it. I think that's going to be sweet. Alrighty, I got that piece all wrapped up. It's already found a nice home on my Vistaite display shelf. And for my first crack at a larger contour, I think it came out pretty nice. You can sort of see the depth I was talking about earlier. I just love the mix of jewel tones, and it's slightly translucent, but still very clearly Jasper. Just a really cool aesthetic. As far as issues, I might have like a little bit of scratching that I didn't pull out down in this corner, but for the most part, light rolls smooth across the face. Nothing distracts you from the colors and the pattern. I'm sure I'll get better. This corner too is just a little bit dull. I'm sure I'll get better with a little practice, but it feels good to prove that I can do just one stage of grinding, 2 of sanding, and take it to cerium and get a good display-worthy result. Here's a look at some of the other nice Vistites in my collection. Gives you a sense of that great mix of colors and that really cool brushstroke type aesthetic. Thank you all so much for watching, coming along with me as I did that contour. even though I sort of was troubleshooting my way through it. Stay tuned for the next one. I think I'll have the method perfected slightly better. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching.